Good afternoon, everyone. We are the last panel discussion standing between you guys and the lunch, and we'll try and make it interesting and sharp and to the point. I have a very distinguished panel with strong experience, and I'm sure whatever questions are not getting answered during the conversation, they can be carried over to lunch. So very quickly, I would like to start by saying technology is making all of us richer. And, these are a few things which only millionaires could afford a decade ago. But any guesses for what is it now? No prizes. Everyone carries it in their pocket. It's a supercomputer, stronger than many of the computers we carry. And so many things are happening in the technology. At times it becomes confusing as to what is really happening. You hear blockchain, IoT, cloud, everything. But finally, if you look at the bottom, which is, what does it mean for us? It means higher productivity, it means a better customer experience, and it means business process reengineering, new business ideas which are coming up. And at this point of time, I would like to come to my panelists and ask them what is happening internally in their organizations and how are they keeping pace with the conversation. If we can start with Aruna.
So Rajeev has opened it up with a huge topic because there are so many different technologies out there, and you can see all of that on the slides. You have big data, AI, and robotics, and IoT, and everything else. So the big question is, which one should any organization invest in? Which one should they pursue? And which one can they afford not to get into? So I think right now, the way I see it, since we have a limited amount of time, I'll just talk about what I see going forward. I think what's going to happen is each of these technologies will keep developing, and we've seen many of them maturing and going forward. But the real trick, I think, is for the organizations to be able to leverage all of these, combine them to provide a real business solution or an improved customer experience. Robotics on its own, we were just talking a little earlier, and we realized that just robotic automation is not going to be sufficient. You have to combine it with things like OCR, and other things to make the end-to-end process really automated. Similarly, we started to use natural language processing for helping our customers when they call into our call center. But how are we going to actually use it? Are we going to use it to just authenticate the customer when he comes in? Or are we going to use natural language processing as a voice bot to be able to respond to the queries that the person is asking? So the real answer is to be able to combine the different technologies to provide a solution. Gather the data using big data, use analytics, use AI, and then deliver the kind of solution or the experience either on a mobile using cloud at the bottom. So it's not any one technology, but really the combination of the different technologies, which I think is going to convey customer experience on one side, and probably what I call autonomous business solutions on the other side. It's really going to change the way we do business.
Fantastic. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not about technology, but about user experience.
How it's going to?
And how you are delivering that. Abhijit, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I want to touch upon a point with regards to cybersecurity on this one. It is a very conventional for all of us to kind of look at systems independently in isolation and securing the organization with all what you can do with the firewalls, with all the softwares that you have, the products that you have for cybersecurity. But if you look at the evolution of the ecosystem, it's all about the IoTs putting on real-time data into your data lakes, and this data being transferred to some cloud for cloud computing, and then there are multiple identity. It's not, identities are not restricted to humans. I mean, they are now kind of extending itself to the devices. And to add to the complexity, identity providers, third-party identity providers like Duan, Identigo, in our country it's like Aadhaar, UIDI. So the trust index of any identity is not restricted within your organization. You still depend on outside. And then as a next wave, it's not going to be a human speaking with some software, but a machine talking to another machine, an interaction between machines. It's going to be M to M. So if you look at the change, this paradigm, it's kind of a shift that is happening with regards to security. It's not in isolation, but it's a connected world, and you need to look at the cyber security across all this ecosystem. And it's going to be a complex. I mean, it's going to be complex, making it more vulnerable to compromises and attacks. So how do you define the strategy to ensure that this digital ecosystem, which is disrupting, you make it more secure? I think that's what we need to have considerations for.
Fair point. Security is important, and maybe I can pull in Ritesh now and talk about security and what needs to be done about that.
Security is, it's ever evolving. So the signatures are constantly changing. But I think what, as a protection, as a plan, organizations like us do is to start building different layers which are constantly changing the circle. So the penetration becomes more difficult. So it's not that, if you think you're secure, there's nothing called secure. It's how you keep evolving around and, constantly changing the codes. So you go through the ID and the verification stages just to make sure you allow the right transactions to go through.
Yeah. So security is the journey.
Yes.
And you'll need to try and stay ahead of the curve.
You have to stay ahead of the curve.
Talk about
There's no end point.
Yeah. So talking about security, I would like to come back to a person Deepu, who gives insurance for some of the risks that we carry, and ask him what is this moment of truth where technology has been put to good use for the customer, and if you could talk about that.
Sure. Ultimately, when we talk about technology or the various landscape of all the developments we do, we need to look at what is the impact on the customer. So I can for example talk about one use case wherein we made a real impact on the customer. If you look at the insurance industry, it's when you file a claim, that's the moment of truth for the customer. The idea here is to create a wow. So what we did was, we deployed blockchain in travel insurance. So in case your flight is delayed beyond the terms and conditions of the policy, you don't need to file any documentation. No proof of delay, no flight tickets, boarding pass, nothing required. All we will do is leverage blockchain, get the information, and cheerfully transfer the amount to you. And this is something which has already been deployed. The other area is IoT, right? So if you look at a lot of elements today coming to the insurance world, because of IoT. So for example, let's look at connected car. It's called telematics. So if you have a device in the car, then the car can tell you, how is your driving behavior. And over a period of time, based on your driving patterns, we can either, increase your premium if you're a risky driver, or we can reduce it, depending on safe driving. So this is a case of actually getting into one-to-one customization, leveraging technology.
Fantastic. So what's really happening is, technology is ensuring that we don't need to do anything and everything happens in the background by itself. One of the need statements for that conversation is we need to share data. And there is a lot of conversation which is happening on data privacy. So maybe I can ask Sumit, so what are the real concerns on customer data privacy, and whether industry can keep the customer data private but still be able to use it to automate all these processes that we're discussing?
So let me bring few digressing views here. I'll first talk about one of a data point, a very elaborate research done by US Labor Department, where they actually looked at some 200 jobs, 200 sector-wise jobs and some 8,000 roles. And they created a chart in terms of what all are the various activities where people are spending time and what are the associated technologies through which you can bring in automation. And with the play of all the technologies available with us right now, right from AI to machine learning to robotics, you can actually look at automating any and everything. And I think so that's where it becomes very critical for us is to where to stop. And the entire strategy of, for every organization to say that let there not be chaos to say we are picking up any and everything. There has to be a strategy to say where we would like to land up 3 years or 5 years from now, and how we are creating our technology landscape to achieve that, and make a stepwise approach towards that. The best example of how you would take from a similar separate industry is aviation. They had autopilots for more than 2 decades, but still you have pilots who would do landing and takeoff. And they have got the right, I would say, confluence between what a pilot does and what an autopilot does. I think so within the financial industry as well, it's very important to bring the focus to our employees as well, to say what is it which they are going to do in future, and where we would like to deploy technology or bots or machine learning to bring the right balance. And I think so that's an area where at least I see a lot of concerns coming, because there's no clarity, and with a lot of news coming in that people are going to lose jobs, and how every organization is running behind productivity and bots are more productive than human beings, then is that cycle going to be more of a competitive in nature? Is it going to be bots versus humans, or bot and humans together? And I think so in each of the business areas, be it data privacy to the way we are looking at our operations, to any other department where we are the art of reimagining, how we bring that confluence is something I would say a very important thing. There isn't a right answer to that, but I think so collectively, all of us sitting here and people in the audience have to draw out their own strategies to make that effective.
Artificial intelligence, so Facebook put a stop to their project because they couldn't understand what the machines were talking among themselves. And that is a concern which everyone has. So is AI really going to replace humans? Is a big conversation. So Vinay, would you like to add on that point?
AI is more fundamental these days, right? So as if you are using any software or hardware, AI is a fundamental technology that everybody has to use. Again, the advantages are multi-scale, right, and multidimensional as well. For example, you would want to increase the risk counting process, or you would want to enhance the efficiency process, or you want to give the customer the leverage and the freedom for him to choose his options pretty freely, right? Again, so automating and removing jobs is a co-parallel thing. Sometimes some things will come faster in certain use cases, something will come later. But again, in the short run, assistive decision making is something that is picking up very fast. There are a lot of processes in financial services which we definitely need understanding of more deeper understanding of the data, right? Which maybe the experts are not capable to do because there is so much of information out there. So those are the right use cases where you would see a larger impact of AI. And again, there are redundant use cases which can be automated through AI as well. So those are the use cases which we are seeing a lot of demand these days in financial services.
Fantastic. Jyoti, would you want to talk about what you're doing on the big data and data analytics piece and how that is making your customers' life simpler?
We are from housing finance company. So we are having a lot of legacy data. So data analytics is a focus point for this year for us. Insights are being taken out, not only for the customer insights, it's for the internal employees also. These insights are helping in taking the credit decisioning and also reduce the NPS, and it is providing a lot of inputs for the collection staff. Along with that, it's not only for the business perspective, even for technology in our data center, we are using Watson Analytics and all to arrive at different insights on which server is going down and what is the reason and what kind of loads are creating this kind of issue, and it is giving a lot of benefits for the technology also.
Consensus on the table was everyone is fintech. Okay, everyone said we are more a technology company rather than a finance company, and that is the way the conversations are being taken forward. So, and everyone is re-engineering their business to come up with new businesses. And everyone on the table shared some conversations. So maybe we can start with Rajneesh and talk about his Dhani program. Sure. And how.
Thanks, Rajiv. So as you said, all of us are fintech, and so we claim we're not a fintech, but we are one of the few guys who are leveraging all the fintechs and the all the surrounding platforms and technologies available. So this Dhani platform that we have built basically talks to some 19 different subsystems in the background and delivers a customer experience which is first of its kind in India, wherein we give personal loan from application to disbursal in 3 minutes. And it is to non-existing customers of ours. So a lot of banks try and say that they give instant loan, but that is only limited to their existing customers. Wherein here we are able to identify you, underwrite you, take details, validate those credentials, and disperse the money in your account in 3 to 5 minutes. So it actually depends on your speed, the customer's speed, and at what speed that he moves ahead in the journey. But that's where the technology is helping us. It's a hugely successful platform that we have built, and thousands of loans are getting disbursed on a daily basis, and we are doing pretty good in that. So I believe, as you said, and if I circle back to the topic of our discussion today, that how technology is reshaping the future of banking, this is where the reshaping is happening, that we are moving quite ahead of the journey in terms of the customer experience. And we are doing pretty good in that. So I believe, as you said, and if I circle back to the topic of our discussion today, that how technology is reshaping the future of banking, this is where the reshaping is happening, that we are moving quite ahead of the journey in terms of the customer experience. And that's where we are able to use that particular thing.
Fantastic. And I would want to circle back to my first point that I made about technology making us richer. All these services, the cost of delivery of those services is coming down dramatically, which means something which was available to HNIs as a service, for example, wealth or risk cover, is now available for a much smaller value. And that is a core conversation which we're going to see more of it in the future. Murthy, would you want to share some experiences from your bank in terms of what are the changes or movements of truth that you have in terms of customer experience or on the business side?
Hi, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. We being a global bank, right, we have the advantages of adopting the technology faster. We have the, pilots happening in US, London, and London being our hub, right? The way to go ahead is, how well you are able to partner with the fintechs, right? We do partner with fintechs and use their ability and their technology to leverage the customer experience. If you want to do everything by yourself and you don't have so much of time, right? Open APIs is something which is picking up. You have to look at it. If you are able to leverage that, then you are, interfacing your legacy databases with the new age apps and all. Now, what's our business model, right? It depends upon what's your offering. Are you into corporate banking? Are you into retail banking? And kind of, based on that, you need to evaluate what, sort of offerings you want to do. So for us, we are majorly into corporate banking and, HNIs and private wealth management and all. So our offerings are more onto those sides. Now, with there in the retail banking, we have a different niche segment of clients. So we offer those kind of services which those clients need, right? We don't want to run around just because someone else is offering the same kind of thing. What, as you rightly mentioned, what is the value add am I providing? What is the cost which I am incurring, right? It doesn't make sense to be in the rat race. From that perspective, we evaluate very closely on what technologies needs to be offered to the clients. And again, the second thing is there are two segments of clients. One is your, old age clients who really want a branch banking and want to go and, feel the human bodies there. One is the millennial thought process, right? They don't have patience today. They switch banks like this, no loyalty at all. Classic case being my son. He says, I don't like this bank, I'm closing this account, I'm going to this bank. And this happened just last week. I said, why? The lousy applications, lousy, service, I don't have patience. If you're not able to, assess and gauge their requirements, you're not there. That's the way ahead. So you need to see what kind of clients you have, what kind of offerings you want to give here.
Fantastic. So you brought up a very relevant point about compete versus collaborate. So the fintech landscape, are they challengers or are they partners? So Aruna, does your bank partner with fintechs as well, and what has been your experience in that journey?
Yeah, of course, we, like all the other financial services industries, also partner with several fintechs. I think the thing about fintechs is they are young, they're agile, they're thinking about technology in a solution, while most of us sort of banks are also worried about regulations and security and all of that. So the fintechs are a little unhindered by that. So I think the best partnership is that we use their ideas, their thought process, and their technology. But then I find that I have to often, what I will say, industrialize it, scale it up, provide the security around it, and the governance and those kind of things. But then it's a good partnership. It tends to work. So we found a lot of, good individual pieces, technical things. How can I do compression better? How can I do speed up of data transmission? Somebody who can help me with the biometric, things like that. So I find the fintechs are young, agile, creative, innovative, and we bring the governance, the regulation, and the product ideas to the market, to the table.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. You said about, banks are burdened by controls. So I was reading this small comment by someone. He said a fintech needs to go to 10 VCs. One has to say yes, and they are in business. in the bank, if you have a choice and you have a proposal, you have to go to 10 people. One of them says no, you stop. So I think that is where the fintechs really bring value, because they are unhindered, quoting you, and they are not restrained by the legacy systems.
They're not thinking by that. They don't stop. They are able to think freely, and then we are able to use that creativity in a product idea.
So at this point in time, let me bring in our platform partners. So for example, Ram Gopal from Perfios and Kent here, and if they can add about how are they partnering with both banks and fintechs and adding value to the customer?
Sure. Thanks, Rajiv. See, Indiabulls Dhani app has been done, Total has been doing this, and DHFL, right? So as a technology enabler, we help them to basically reprocess their businesses, and also at a point where to be able to address markets, new business markets, which was not feasible. So it is largely about collaboration, okay, and leveraging, like what Aruna said is, fintechs bring in the ability to be able to be agile. Like we are a company which were of 10 people 4 years ago, we are 120. We service around 140 customers today, pretty much in the space, okay. And also we are able to bring in a lot of processes, but then as we grow and as we get into mainstream part of the businesses, then we have to also start worrying about regulations and data privacies and other aspects.
Fantastic.
Thanks, some great points. Hopefully you can all understand my quirky Welsh accent, so I'll speak slowly. One point, Rajiv, that is a very scary slide, I have to admit. Could you go back a slide for me, please? I'm far more comfortable on the first one. 2 points on this slide that relates to a lot of what the guys and the ladies have said today. The first point is, I think we would all agree that it's essential that all of these technical entities speak to each other, are able to cooperate with each other and converse with each other. So that's the first point. Secondly, that becomes very, very complex, and that looks like a complex slide to me, if every one of those links in those slides are done with proprietary-based protocols and solutions. What that means to the banks and the bankers in this room is, that means more dollars for you to implement. That's more systems integration dollars, without a doubt. So if you can move, and you would have heard that from Phil this morning, if you can do that with open standards protocols, where it reduces the systems integration, that lowers the bank's cost of implementation. And what it means to everybody in this room, every technology decision maker in this room is, you're not locked in to any technology provider. You have the freedom to choose and to move, and that alone aids innovation and development.
New things are happening and new kind of data is being generated. Let me go back to Bhuvanendra and ask him. So currently the credit scoring is happening on financial parameters, but there are a lot of alternative data available, and people are leveraging on that to bring new to banking customers with a score and being able to lend to them.
Yes.
So what is CIBIL's response to that in terms of the way they're planning their journey?
No, so you're right. So we were mentioning, we are partnering with fintechs. And like you said, the real space is in the new to credit, where behavior is more important than past credit history. So I think you're right on that space. That plays an important part. So the fintechs are really playing a good part in the NTC space, what we call new to credit, because they're able to access mails. But do remember, these can be engineered. So just be careful, like this, Cambridge issue, which happened. Social engineering is very strong. So do make sure that, like she mentioned, something sounds wow, but understand your controls and the governance to use this data. And you'll have to play with it. But I think they're very innovative, and especially in the new to credit space.
Yeah, so, thanks. And, so it's an interesting point you made. People claim that Brexit and US elections have been influenced by that conversation, and that again brings us to that conversation about data privacy and security, and people are worried about that conversation as we go along. Now, so many machines talking to each other, we are back to this slide. So how does one handle security and networking? Ritesh, if you could just...
First of all, I just love this conversation, right? Because it's so very relevant. I mean, I was like almost jumping to, come in, right? And the reason primarily is, people spoke about application, people spoke about multiple integration points, talking outside their organization, some 90 applications, I think, getting integrated into one common application and so on, right? This sounds very complex. And I think he just commented that the slide also looks very complex. And we love when people say it is complex because we are the ones who make it simple, right? I think in today's world where the whole focus is around applications, right? As Cisco, I think, we work towards ensuring that how do we deliver the right application at the right time, right? Which is 100% of the times. That's the absolute goal we work with, right? Now, of course, security being a key concern, and that's the hot topic which has been going around always, right? I mean, any conversation that I have participated in, I think this is the topic I'm asked to speak on, which is something which I love. So from our approach to security has been, ensuring that it is a very coordinated approach, okay? We believe in ensuring that, we don't take a siloed approach, as in it's not about securing the perimeter or securing the edge, with two different corners, right? And two different solutions and two different thought processes. It is all about ensuring that, how does a perimeter security solution talk to the edge and also take it to the application level, right? So a well-coordinated approach is what we propose, and that's where, it brings a lot of edge, to some of the enterprises that we serve, right? Now, the other factor is the reason I said that we also love this bit of complexity is primarily because, the way our designs work, it's like constantly learning what is happening across, right? Constantly adapting to those changes with use of, new technologies like AI, ML, and so on, which is more integrated, and constantly protecting it. Okay? So that's my thought to it.
Yep. At this point of time, I would like to do some crystal gazing and try and understand. Two of the questions which keep coming to my mind is, what is the future of the branch? Will there be a bank branch or a business branch as we go along? And will we only talk to machines going forward and without any human? Ma'am, would you like to comment on that? And I would request other panelists, if they have a closing comment to make, please step in and...
Okay, so both the questions very quickly because short of time. I don't think branches will ever go away. We'll continue to have less branches, but it's not only, it's also about human behavior. Many of us want to know that we don't really want to go to the branch, but if we need to, it should be there at the corner. I should be able to go over and have a touch and feel experience. So I think number of branches will come down, but they will need to continue. About whether we'll talk to human beings, again, I think the low-hanging fruit will be picked up by the voice bots. We have our own Kia at the bank, so I'm going to pitch that for a moment, who is a voice bot and will respond to you if you call on the IVR. But if you ask her a tough question, you will still get routed to an agent. So I think there'll always be a bit of both.
Thanks. Anyone else would like to come in at this time? Would you want to come in?
I think I can't agree more with Aruna, right? The branches, we'll have less branches, but branches will remain for the traditional people and even for, the people who want to actually go and find out and feel them and kind of thing. Not a machine can't, replace the humans at all. It may reduce the processes, the operational tasks, but branches will remain. That's my take.